So there are many underrated materia combinations in Final Fantasy VII Remake that can actually be very powerful. Some of them can provide more ways to cast your spells and abilities more often, while others can provide more survivability for your entire party, and in a few situations even complete immunity to attacks that are meant to one-hit kill you. In this video we're going to dive right in with over 7 of the most useful such combos that are going to make your party much stronger, especially on that hard difficulty. So if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super awesome, and let's jump right into it. Of course, we already talked about a couple of these in previous videos, like the HP Absorption Materia combined with the Deadly Dodge, which makes pretty much all of your Deadly Dodge attacks to now heal you for each single enemy that you're going to hit, and this is definitely going to be very useful on hard or pretty much against large groups of enemies where you will pretty much hit everybody in one single go. So definitely something that you should pay attention to, since you can also get this quite early on in the game. The other one is the Elemental Materia with any spell that you want to have resistance to, and if you put these on your armor, this is going to make you pretty much immune, in some cases even absorb the incoming damage, and this is going to make you heal yourself against certain enemies. For example, linking an Elemental Materia with ice and putting this on your armor slot and linking these together can pretty much make you immune against all of the damage against Shiva, which is going to be really useful if you're planning to go up against her. But this can work with literally any enemy in the game that casts an elemental damage, and you just have to combine that certain materia with the elemental materia in order to be fully resistant to that. This brings us to the third materia combo, and something that will actually get you through one-hit KOs in this game, and these are of course the warding plus subversion materia, of course both of them being fully maxed out over here to make the most out of them. So chances are that you probably already encountered the Thornberry enemy both in the main story campaign as well as in the Shinra Combat hard challenges, as he is one of the more notorious annoying enemies that constantly does that one-hit KO ability on any character that it touches. So this can easily get out of control, which is why this combination of materia right here is going to make you completely bypass his mechanic and only get the 500 damage instead. Of course, his chef's knife can be dodged, it can be parried and even counterattacked, and you're not going to die, but this isn't going to always be the case, as he tends to cast it really quickly and oftentimes even blocks you inside a stop that you're not going to be able to get out of, and he is going to kill you through that. But in this case you can avoid that, and he also has a second one-shot kill ability that cannot be dodged at all, and this is also going to prevent all of that as well. Let's move over to number 4, and something that you probably didn't think was possible, but yes, you can actually link 3 materia to one another and make one single spell benefit from 2 different materias at the same time. Like for example, let's say you would want one of your spells to both be magnified as well as give some HP or MP back when dealing damage to the enemy. Well, actually you can do that, but you will have to use 4 materia slots in total, all of them being linked. So in this case what you can do is to use a magnify plus, for example, a fire materia, and then use another fire materia of the same level with a different kind of materia that can link to it, like for example the MP absorption that I'm using in this example. So even though in this case you're going to be using 2 different materias for the same exact spell, in your actions menu you're only going to see one single entry. As long as both of those materials are of the same level, you won't ever have to worry about casting the wrong version of it, and it's always going to benefit from both of the linked materials you have to both of these spells. So in this case I've ran with a magnify plus fire and another fire plus MP absorption, and it has some really awesome effects that I kind of want to share with you guys. So first of all, when you're doing these attacks, it's not only going to provide MP back on your first initial blow, but also on the subsequent magnified bounces that will jump on additional 2 enemies, which means that you're getting a total of about 12 MP back from one single cast that usually costs about 16 MP with this build that I'm having. What's even cooler about this setup is the fact that you can actually get a ton of MP back from it if you're also using the lower level versions of the same spell. Like for example, example the first and the second, especially if you're using Firaga, the level 1 version of the fire damage. This is going to give you about 20, maybe even 30 MP back from one single cast if you're fighting with 3 or more enemies. So basically the first one is going to cost 3 MP with this build right here, which I'm immediately getting back from the initial hit, but since there are 3 bounces, this means that I'm getting a ton of MP back from them. But there's an additional thing that you can do in order to actually get more even from the higher level spells, which is of course using Aerith's Arcane Ward. So this is one of her main abilities that is really useful, one of the main ones that I'm using in my build, but this makes you auto cast an attack spell a second time. The best part about this is that this is going to be free of charge, so the second cast that is going to automatically be casted is always going to be free of charge, which means that you're essentially getting MP back from the second cast without ever actually using any of your MP. Anyway, this brings us to a couple of other materials here that aren't really combined per se, but they do provide a ton of synergy to your entire party, since you're gonna be able to cast a ton of spells with your other party mates. So in this case, I want to start things off with the ATB assist materia that is actually way more useful than I initially thought. So the way this works is pretty simple, as in repeating a command 2 times with a character will provide ATB fill to all of the allies in your party. This is extremely useful if you're planning to go with a build that is really spammy. This is going to give you a ton of ATB to all of your other allies, which means that they are also going to be able to cast their abilities way more often. Like for example, against the Chocobo fight, you can overwhelm him and perma-stun him if you also provide a ton of ATB fill to the rest of your team members. This is why I definitely suggest using something like this on a character like Tifa, since she is perfectly suited for it. Especially so with her unbridled strength 2 times cast that you're definitely going to want to use against staggered enemies. This is going to be done in a rapid succession, which means that you're always going to get that ATB assist bonus to the rest of your team members, and they are going to immediately be able to cast spells or healing. This doesn't mean it won't work with other characters and builds, it can definitely do so, but I had the most amount of success with Tifa, especially so when these have to be done with almost no delay between them. So no matter what build you're using or abilities, make sure that that command is going to be done in a rapid succession with almost no delay between it, otherwise you are not going to benefit from the ATB assist. This also brings us to another really awesome one that works in a similar way, though only for your character, and that is the Skill Master Materia. So basically this provides ATB increase when using 3 types of commands. The best part about this is that you don't actually have to do this with no delay, so you can actually take some time in between these commands and you're still going to benefit from the Skill Master. You can even do it up to 30 seconds. I'm not really sure if it's indefinite, but at least up until 30 seconds you can still do this and still pull the Skill Materia off. Now the thing that you must keep in mind is that these 3 different types of commands must be different from one another. You will know if the Skill Master passive has activated if you see this white/blue burst of energy happening around the character when you're doing the 3rd command. So it's kinda easy to miss in the middle of the combat, but if you're doing this you will eventually notice it, and that's what's going to indicate that you did it properly. So in order to do this properly, you will have to do 3 different distinct commands from one another and never repeat them, otherwise it's not going to trigger. So for example, I'm starting a fight with stop, which is the 1st command, followed by a thrust with the sword, which is the 2nd command, and finally a triple slash, which is the 3rd command, which is what activates it. But if you want to do this the 2nd time and benefit from the buff again, you cannot repeat the same sequence of 3 attacks like in this case. So what you're going to want to do is to add a variable, a 4th attack that you can tie in. Maybe it's a healing, maybe it's a different type of attack, maybe it's a buff upon yourself. Whatever it is, you have to break that cycle and not repeat the same cycle again, otherwise the 2nd time and the 3rd time it's not going to work anymore. Anyway, this brings us to our final combination, which isn't just for for a couple of materia, but it also involves a couple of skills in there as well. So this is the Magnify plus Barrier on Barret, as well as combining both of these with Lifesaver and Steel Skin abilities. So basically this is going to make your party almost completely immortal, even up against the toughest challenges in the game, and like any enemy that might one-shot your entire party isn't going to make a dent into that if you do the perfect setup. In this case, I've ran the entire setup on one single character, Barret, since he's the perfect setup for this, but you can use Magnify plus Barrier on any other party mate out there. But having Barrier on your entire party with one single cast is invaluable, since this is going to mitigate a ton of damage, but this can further be buffed by having that Steel Skin ability for Barret that's going to reduce incoming damage even more, the Steadfast block that's going to reduce that even further than that, and finally the Lifesaver to kinda mitigate and redirect all that damage back into Barret. I've already talked about this in yesterday's build, so if you didn't see that yet, go ahead and check it out. For example, against the Behemoth fight and his ultimate, you're going to be able to survive with your entire team, and within these characters only Barret will fall under half HP, while the other ones are going to remain above 75% depending on your setup. So again, this is something that kind of trivialized one of the toughest fights in the game. If you're going up against Pride and Joy, you have to fight this enemy as well as Ifrit eventually, so this is what actually got me through that. But this is pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.